got started recording?
We have.
All right, we'll call a meeting to order. Today is June 5th, 2023. It's about 12:30 p.m. We're meeting in the Commissioners' Meeting Room in Supplemental County, Oregon. And we have a couple of things today. The first one is a meeting to discuss the budget for the current year. And from time to time, public agencies in Oregon, under Oregon law, are allowed to make an adjustment that's called a supplemental budget that they do towards the end of the fiscal year. And that's what this little meeting will be about, and it shouldn't be more than 30 minutes or so, at least that's what's scheduled. So fairly routine, but if there's anything routine, that's probably not routine these days. So according to the agenda, we'll now go to the county treasurer and finance officer, Sean Blanchard, and she can explain the several items, and it looked to me like there are 2 pages that we got emailed out this morning too, of adjustments, primarily more revenue and where it would go. So we'll turn it over to the county treasurer, and then we'll take it from there.
Yes, so before you is a 22-23 supplemental budget. We did have multiple funds that received more in revenue or had a higher beginning fund balance after being audited. In particular, TLT, it kind of seems like that one is up in the air. Take a guess at it, but at the end of the year, we've got some more going into the road department and into TLT facilities. There was also some bike path. They had a transfer that did not make it into the budget when we were here last year. So this is to account for that and the spending. Also more mental health funds came in as passed through. If I don't appropriate enough to pass those through, I get an audit comment.
You don't like those comments,
I do not like the comments. It affects our rating. We go out for loans or bonds or any of that. So I try and keep away from those. There's also additional road improvement, construction, and beginning fund balance and expenses and materials and services. So this will be noticed and then adopted on June 21st at the BOC meeting.
Terrific.
Any questions for me?
Would you want to, before we open it up for questions to public and others, could you want to hit each of the funds if you go through? I don't think that would take too long if you've got at least ones where you might have a comment. You already mentioned the TLT, but what about the others?
So for the county grant, Karen Conroth, their accounting tech out at the Sheriff's Office, has been working really hard to improve that grant, and they received some additional funding. So this is appropriating that for their expenses. The Forest Timber Trust is legal expenses, and those were a little more expensive than what we had budgeted for, but we did have some additional savings in the beginning fund balance there. I did hit on the TLT. This increases the TLT transfer to TLT facilities. The road fund, TLT increased for paint, striping, and vehicles that Chris has already spent. Bike path I mentioned, mental health I mentioned, and also increasing the beginning fund balance for the building improvement to account for contracting services.
And so I guess for benefit of anyone who might be listening, there should be a distinction between the general fund and special funds. And as we discussed at our last meeting, special funds are typically quite restrictive. They're to be used for the purpose that the fund was set up for in the beginning. And there's some fairly tight restrictions. For example, the county could not take money from a health department and put it on the roads. As much as they may want to at some point, that's not allowed, and there would be some consequences if that were to happen. So this is a mix of both general fund and some special funds, and so to the extent people want to know more, they can ask questions, and that's our next item. So are there anyone from the public who would care to question the county treasurer or any of us on any of the items that are before us at this time? Do we have anybody from the public? I can't tell exactly. Some
numbers. I don't know who those are.
Yeah, we've got mostly staff, it looks like, but maybe some outside callers. So callers, if you'd care to go off mute or speak up, we'd be pleased to take your questions. Well, it doesn't sound like we have anyone who wants to ask questions of the treasurer or any of us. So then we'll move down then to our budget committee. So we'll open it up. Anyone want to question, any one of the five of us want to question or comment on what's before us?
No, it looks pretty typical of just changes that occur for us during a year.
Has there ever been a budget, and I don't recall one in recent memory, where we didn't have a supplemental? Almost every year, yeah.
I think ones that have one twice a year.
Mhm.
Looks pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah, and like you said, if you didn't recognize this and make the appropriate adjustments, then the auditors will say that you should have.
Yes.
And we all understand that has implications, so. All right, well, if there are no comments from the public or from this committee, then we'll move along, and I'll ask if someone would like to offer a motion to approve it as changes as presented from the treasurer.
I move we approve the 2022-2023 supplemental budget.
I second.
All right, moved and seconded to approve the supplemental budget prepared and before us. And for the record, it's the 22-23 fiscal year, and that's the current year. And so then this would be adjusted for the year about to end on June 30. So, any further questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. All right, we're good. Do we have any other agenda item to come before this committee? This was kind of a special purpose, single event.
We'll be back at 1 o'clock.
All right, thank you. We're done. Meeting adjourned then at 12:37. We will reconvene the budget committee to deal with the next year's budget at 1 o'clock today. Thank you.
Okay.
You were wrong, you took us